developer burden has never been higher, and it's holding all of you back from being able to unleash your true potential as innovators and problem solvers. Raise your hand if you've ever found yourself spending more time on mundane tasks than actually on coding. Yeah. Now, you're not alone. In fact, a recent Gartner study found, on average, you're only spending 27% of your time on innovation. Now, if you're to remain efficient and productive, we're going to need to reimagine the developer experience. And in today's session, we're going to do just that. So we're going to start the session with a demo that showcases how you can use next-generation tooling integrated into your daily workflows to be elaborated by Vincent DeGori, CTO from AXA DCP. But before we look to the future, we need to have a look back and see how we got here in the first place. Now, the role of developers has evolved dramatically over the years, despite us being so young in our journey. We introduced version control systems and IDEs to allow you to have collaboration and to encourage best practices. Programming languages have evolved to higher levels of abstraction. But as the developer experience has continued to increase, there has been significant challenges in what our workloads are, right? So we have had all of these things piled up, and now we're needing to take a step back and understand how can we improve. Now, we're going to lead you through a scenario today where you are going to be introduced to some new tooling in the role of a developer. You are going to take your first steps in this role, where you will experience some of these next-generation tools and how they can help you to be more productive than ever before, removing the time wasted on tedious tasks. Now, in this scenario, I'm going to be the tech lead for any company, a leading player in the fashion industry. My team was recently tasked with launching a new bespoke t-shirt design platform, which uses generative AI to provide you with a t-shirt of your choice. And here it is, unique. Now, with just a few clicks and entering a prompt of your choice, you will have a t-shirt that's designed specifically for you that you can have. And then, if you're happy, you just click the buy now. That will then add it to your basket, and you'll continue. Now, customers absolutely love this experience. However, as demand has increased, so much has our backlog of tasks, which is why I've hired all of you and Askar to help us to take Unique up to the next level.
Yeah, and like many of you, I'm very excited to be joining this team. But we've all been there. You're joining a new team, you're really excited to start working on a new tech stack, but then you spend hours or even days configuring your developer machine, installing all the necessary software, setting up your profile across the different systems that are used within the company. All of this is taking from the time that we could spend doing things that actually matter.
Okay. So to address these pain points, we launched Amazon Code Catalyst. Code Catalyst brings together all of the disparate tools that you need to be able to manage your software development lifecycle, all from a single integrated UI. This means your build infrastructure, your development environments, all within that single application, with no need to do context switching anymore between the different tools that you might be using. So let's see how Code Catalyst can help us here with onboarding to our project without the complications that come with that.
OK. Now let's switch to the demo. Here, I'm logged into Code Catalyst. In order for me to use Code Catalyst, I don't need to have my AWS account. I can use AWS Builder ID instead, which is a free personal profile that is completely free to create. As you can see here, I'm in any company's Code Catalyst space, and I have a list of projects that I have access to. If I go inside Project Unique, I can see an overview of the project itself and all its different components at a glance. So things like CI/CD workflow runs, pull requests, dev environments, issues, and stuff like that. I can also have my source code repository right here. I can browse through the files. I can even edit them straight from here if I feel like it. What I also have here are my CI/CD workflows, which I can filter by branches. I can see them visually. I can edit them straight from here. So as you can see, everything we as developers need to start working on this project is right here in one place. What I also have here are issues that have been assigned to me And even though I've just barely started, there are already 3 issues assigned to me. So Chris, what's that about?
Awesome. Okay, so your first task is to set up your development environment. You need to have the code base running. You're going to need to have the dependencies installed, everything that you need ready to go. For this, we can use the development environment feature of Code Catalyst. Let's see how we can use it here.
Cool. So I'm going to create my dev environment straight in Code Catalyst. I can choose my preferred IDE. So it can either be AWS Cloud 9 or VS Code or JetBrains IDEs. I prefer VS Code. And then I can configure how I want my dev environment to be launched. So I can, for example, create the branch immediately from here, so it is automatically cloned into my dev environment, so I don't spend time doing that manually. I can then choose the compute capacity of my dev environment. So I'm choosing 8 gigs of RAM because that's, I think, the least that I need. I can then choose storage, timeout, and even integration with Amazon VPC if I need it. And just like that, I click Create. And then the VS Code that is installed on my local machine is starting automatically and connects via SSH to the dev environment that I have just created in Code Catalyst. So what it means is that what we see here, the code base, everything is running in the cloud, whereas my local VS Code is just acting as a thin client. That means that I don't need to pull any code into my local machine. I don't need to install any software. All the dependencies and packages have already been installed. And I can confirm that. So for the front end, for example, we use React. So all my Node modules have already been pre-downloaded and installed. In the back end, we use Python and Flask. And I can confirm that Flask has been installed as well. So you might be wondering, how do we sort of pre-configure this behavior, right? With Code Catalyst, we have a feature called dev file, where you can basically predefine your dev environment using a YAML declaration file, where you can configure things like which container image is running your dev environment. For example, this image here already has Python and Node pre-installed. So I don't need to do that manually. It saves me a lot of time. And then I can specify scripts that I want to run upon launching the dev environment. So for example, here you can see that we are installing backend and front-end dependencies. So what it means is that everything is ready within minutes. And if we think about it, so if all of us will now launch our dev environments, this feature will save us probably hundreds of hours because we don't need to do all of this manually ourselves. It's just ready. And what it means is that already from here, I can just go to my application folder and start the local copy of our application, just like that. And even though the application itself is running in the cloud, thanks to the port forwarding feature that we have with Code Catalyst dev environments, it is running like I can access it on my local machine as if I was running it locally, right? So even though it's running in the cloud, I have still this familiar development experience. And that means that I'm now fully prepared to start contributing to the project.
Awesome. So you now have the code accessible in your IDE. You are ready to get started developing. We can mark that task as complete and now step into our first coding task of the day. Now, for this first coding task of the day, we're going to be having a look at the images. Now, you already saw in a demo, we use images for a bit. We use them for our t-shirt templates. We use them for our design output. But all of this is stored locally on disk, which isn't great. It doesn't scale very well. It's not resilient. So the ask here is to move from using local disk to using Amazon S3, and then to add a CloudFront CDN distribution in front of that to lower the latency for our end users. Any thoughts, Asghar, how you'll do this?
Well, conceptually, I know what needs to be done to solve this issue. But I don't necessarily remember the Python syntax, how I implement this in my application. Or I might not remember exactly what commands do I use to provision these cloud resources. So I feel like I will have to go back and forth between my IDE and the web browser so that I can look things up as I go.
So this is why we developed Amazon Code Catalyst. Code Whisperer, rather. Code Whisperer lives within your IDE, and it provides you coding suggestions in real time, and significantly reduces the time it takes for you to find a solution to your challenge. Now to do this, it's been trained on billions of lines of code and supports many of the popular languages you're already using today. But it doesn't stop there. Code Whisperer takes a security-first approach by having a security scanning feature which can identify risks in your code and then provide you the recommendations on how you address them. Let's see how Code Whisperer can help with the next coding task.
Okay. So I'm going to switch back to my IDE, open the file that implements the backend logic in our application. As I mentioned before, it's a Python. We use Flask. And basically what this file does is an API that accepts the request from the front end, generates a new unique print, and overlays it on top of a t-shirt template. And the lines of code that we need to change are here. As you can see, currently, we fetch the assets from our local storage on the server itself, and then we save the final result to local storage as well, too. So we will need to change that so that we use Amazon S3 instead. So we'll be downloading our assets from S3, and we'll be uploading our final result to S3 as well. So how do we do it? Well, I have Code Whisperer installed in my IDE already. And the first thing I will need to do is to create an S3 client, right? And for that, I will need to use AWS SDK for Python called DOP302. And I will need to initialize the client itself. With Code Whisperer, I can either prompt it using a comment in my code, or Code Whisperer can also act proactively based on the context as I type my code. So here you can see I put my cursor under the Amazon Bedrock client definition using DOP302, and it immediately recommends me that probably I want to create an S3 client as well. And it understands that from the context of the file, from the position of the cursor at that time. So I accept that recommendation, and the next thing it recommends me is that I create a variable for my bucket name, which makes sense because I'm going to use S3 in my application. So now I scroll down to the lines of code that we need to change, and we see here. So this time around, I'm actually going to use the comment to ask Code Whisperer, like, hey, I need to download the file from S3. I don't necessarily remember the method, the syntax for the DOP302, and Amazon Code Whisperer generates me that line of code automatically. So I don't need to look it up elsewhere. But I want to remind you that even though Amazon Code Whisperer is helping me here, it doesn't necessarily get everything correctly, right? So for example, in this example, it didn't get the pass the way I wanted. So I want to remind you that this is an assistant. It helps you. It makes you more productive. But you are in control at the end. So make sure that you check what you're doing. My next step is to save the final result locally first before I upload it to Amazon S3. So this is what I'm doing here. And now I'm going to use to ask Code Whisperer again. And this time I need to upload my file to S3. Code Whisperer recommends me the line of code again. No need to look anything up. And this time around, because it has all the context, it has all the variables, it knows what I was doing before, it actually generated the line of code that was completely correct. So I don't need to change anything. I'm happy with the result. I can remove the lines of code that were used to interact with local storage. And my next step would be to create the actual bucket itself. So for my sandbox environment, I'm going to create the resources using AWS CLI directly. But in production, please use infrastructure as code. So for that, I'm going to switch to the terminal where I have Code Whisperer installed. And again, even though I do not remember how do I use AWS CLI to create an AWS S3 bucket, I just ask Amazon Code Whisperer in plain English that I need to create an S3 bucket with that name. It gives me the command, I check it, and execute. Just like that, my bucket has been created. What I need to do now, I need to navigate to my folder with all of my assets and upload them to S3. Again, I don't necessarily remember the command itself, and I'm going to just ask Code Whisperer, hey, I need to get this folder, upload it to S3. Give me the command. And Code Whisperer generates the command for me. I check it first and execute. And all of my assets are now being uploaded. Just to make sure, I'm going to switch to the console, see that the bucket has indeed been created. My assets have indeed been uploaded to the bucket. So what it means is I can go back to my code and put the actual bucket name as my variable, right? So with that, all of my code changes for this file, for this task are done for now. And as a best practice, I'm going to run CodeWhisperer security scan so that I make sure that I have not introduced any potential issues, security issues, or performance issues into my code base. So I'm going to ask CodeWhisperer to run the security scan, and it will do that throughout the whole code base, not just the file that we have open. And as we can see, it flags a couple of issues. And the first one is actually in the file that we have just edited. It looks like the way we generate our unique file name. We use datetime object for that. And we are not using it very like in the most appropriate way because there are some potential issues with time zones. And CodeWhisperer is telling me that exactly. It shows me also how I fix this issue. And also, I can just apply this fix with one click. I just click Apply Fix. It changes my line of code there. And it tells me also that for this solution to work, I need to import this module into my file. So it provides me that in a command. So I just put it on top, import this module into my application, save the line, and I will rerun the scan again, just to make sure that there are no any other issues, and yeah, so that I can confirm that it's all good. This issue that we have here is from one of the test cases, so I'm not going to chase that. Finally, we should not forget that Chris has asked us that we serve our assets from CDN. So we're going to use Amazon CloudFront for that. And I'm going to create my CloudFront distribution again with the help of CodeWhisperer in my CLI, in my terminal. And yeah, it's a pretty big command, so I don't remember how to type it. So I'm just going to ask it again. And this time, CodeWhisperer has generated me the command for my request, but it did so with some extra parameters that were not relevant for my use case. And it's just another reminder for you all that even though CodeWhisperer is there to help you, to assist you, make you more productive, make sure that you check what is going, because after all, it's you who is in control, what goes into your code base and what commands you're executing. So I checked that I had some extra commands, parameters that I didn't need. I removed them, ran the command, copied the domain name from the CloudFront distribution, and I can embed it into my frontend. And that means that my first task is now complete.
So well done. So using the intuitive power of CodeWhisperer, you have just implemented a feature using simple syntax without even needing to go searching for answers. You then were able to use the power of the CLI integration to get the necessary commands and the correct arguments to create those resources. And finally, make sure that your code is adhering to security best practices by running a security scan. This is an absolute game changer for all of you. We can confidently mark this task as complete, and now take a look at our next one. OK, so this time, it's another coding task, but we're going to be in the front end. The ask is to add a dark mode UI toggle into the application, which means that you're going to be stepping into the React part of the workload. What do you think, Iraska?
I don't know about you guys, but it's been a while since I've touched React at all, so I feel much less confident about this one. And yeah, to be completely honest with you, I'm not sure where to start.
Yeah, so you've all been in these shoes before, right? It's not your area of expertise, the documentation is lacking, and you begin to question, where do you even begin? It's almost as if you need guidance here from someone or from something. So this is why we launched Amazon Q. Amazon Q is your generative AI assistant designed to support you and help you to level up your development skills. Q has been designed to be available everywhere that you operate, and that includes embedding it within your IDE. By having an intelligent conversation, Q can begin to help you make progress on tasks that you would have previously spent countless hours stumped trying to work out a solution for. Let's see how Q can help here to point you in the right direction.
OK, we switch back to our IDE and open the file that holds most of our front-end code. So, as we mentioned before, it's a React application. There's quite a bit going on there, so some visual styles, components, stuff like that. And as I said, I'm quite rusty with React, so it would be great to have just an overview of what's going on in this file at all, because there are no comments, nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Amazon Q straight in my IDE in plain English please tell me what's going on in this file. And Amazon Code Queue will sort of provide me with a high-level overview of what is happening in this file. So for example, it is mentioning what libraries and modules that are used in this application, how is data that we import into our file is used in our code, and how different React state management features work, and like what they do in our application. So it's a decent start for someone like me who's rusty with React. Okay, I now understand a little bit better what's going on. And also, if you think about it, it's not like you could just copy your whole code base and put it into web search and hope that someone on the web can explain you what's going on with that. So it's very, very powerful that Amazon Q can provide these recommendations for you, understanding the context. So next, I want to focus on this. Let me check. Yeah, on this API call here. It's pretty big. And I can just select this snippet of code and ask Amazon Q, could you please explain me this code here? And this time, because I'm asking just one function, it actually goes a little bit deeper as well. So almost line by line, it tells me, OK, there are some state changes that are happening. Then we are forming a form data object that we then send as a post request using Axios library. And yeah, so and also there at the bottom, it explains me in plain English what this function does. So it's almost as if asking your teammate with whom you're working on the same project and they just understand the code better, and they can just explain you, OK, this is what this file does, or this particular function does. Then there at the bottom, we have our part that renders our UI. So all the visual components, styles, and stuff like that. I'm not going to stop there. But now I feel much more ready, sort of, to start working on the actual task at hand, adding the dark mode. And for that, I'm going to open a new chat with Amazon Q and ask it, so how do I add dark mode into our application? And because Amazon Q understands the context of the file, again, it knows that we're using React, it knows which visual library or visual framework we're using, it will provide me with some relevant recommendations for my code base. So again, someone like me, not very experienced with React, I can follow this approach. And what I want to also sort of focus your attention on is that Amazon Q will not magically solve your complete issue here, right? It's not like it will generate you the code, you can just copy paste it and it will work. No. But it gives you an approach. It gives you the pointers, recommendations that you can follow to work on your own implementation. It gives you some links at the end, at the bottom as well, so that you can follow that while you're working on your implementation. So I'm going to follow these recommendations and work on my own implementation. And here, after spending some time, I've implemented my dark mode into this application. And we can see here, for example, the Amazon Q recommended me that I use this module that helps me in React switch between light and dark mode. I did not know this feature existed at all before. So if not for Amazon Q, I wouldn't know that this existed. And while I was working on this implementation, it really helped me. Also, the way I apply dark or light mode into my visual components is also pretty much exactly the same as Amazon Q has recommended me there. So I sort of, it did not just speed up my implementation, but it also kind of provided me with best practices that I was following. So with these recommendations, yeah, I managed to implement this feature sort of much faster. And I did not feel that I was starting from scratch as well, which is, again, for someone like me, was very important. So what I want to do now is to actually make sure that our feature, our toggle works. You can see there at the top right, we now have a toggle where we switch between light and dark mode. And I'm going to do a manual end-to-end testing just to see that our application is still working. There's no sort of functionality that was broken in the process. So I'm going to generate my t-shirt design. I'm going to switch between light and dark mode. OK, everything works. I can confirm that the whole flow end-to-end is fine. Dark mode has been added. Great. But while I was working on this implementation, I felt that the part that renders our UI looks a bit messy to me. So I was wondering if we can do something to improve it, optimize it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this whole snippet of code and ask Amazon Q if it can provide me with recommendations on optimizing this code. And it's going to do it. So it recommends me how I can avoid duplication in my visual components, how I can avoid re-renders as well, which is quite important for the performance, how I can make my visual components sort of more reusable and the code more maintainable. So all of these recommendations, again, is as if asking like a senior developer in your team if he can or she can look at your code and provide you with some recommendations. So I'm going to save these recommendations for the future. Oh, no, actually, one more thing that I want to do. As you can see here, I have only one code example. But in order for me to sort of work on this or implement this faster, I want to see more code samples. So I can actually ask Amazon Q, could you please provide me with more code samples so that I can work on my implementation faster? And as you can see this time, it gives me more recommendations with the actual code samples as well, so that I can start experimenting and adding these improvements into my application faster. So I'm going to save these recommendations for later. But for now, Chris, I hope you're happy with the implementation.
Yeah, very happy. So you've just seen how, by using Q, you've been able to understand an unfamiliar language, unfamiliar code base, and implement a feature that a few hours ago, maybe you didn't even feel confident in approaching. So let's mark that task as complete. And well, whilst you were going through, I realized actually we probably have time to work on just one more thing before the end of the day. Now, I've added this issue here. This has been in our backlog for the last few days, and it's really beginning to cause a bit of a headache. In some cases, when the design generation is happening, it leads to a timeout, which in result leads to a bad customer experience. I'm going to need you to implement a hotfix ASAP.
OK. You know what? This looks like one of those hotfixes that we're creating, like checking out the code, creating a branch, creating pushing your changes to the branch, creating a pull request, and merging it back will just take more time than actually fixing the code itself. So it's one of those cases where I would just love to reassign it to someone else.
You know what? This has got me thinking. Maybe I can use this task to introduce you to one last feature which can really help here. So you've seen just now how Q can be completely accessible within the IDE, but its capabilities extend far beyond that. Q is designed to be available everywhere that you operate, and that includes Code Catalyst. From within Code Catalyst, Q provides you with intelligent automation to simplify your tasks and allow you to spend more time on your priorities and less on distractions. One of the most powerful ways that Q can do this is its ability to implement hotfixes and small code changes without even checking out the code locally. This means you really are then just focusing on those more reward and more complex programming tasks. Let's see how Q can help us do this fix directly within Code Catalyst.
Cool. So in order for me to ask Amazon Q to work on this feature, it just literally reassign this issue for me and assign it to Amazon Q. And when I do that, Amazon Q starts working on this issue. So it will just read the description of the issue, and we'll start reading the code base to understand our project and understand our code. It will then generate the background, which is more, it's just a high-level description of the project. It's more for our own case sake. And then it will generate an approach. So it will explain to me how it is planning to implement this fix. And again, you're in control. So it will first ask you that you can confirm that you're happy with the approach before it will start doing anything. So I'm just looking at the implementation. OK, looks good to me. I click Proceed. And after that, Amazon Q will start working on the actual code itself. And the flow is very similar to how you work with your teammates, right? It will generate the code, and it will create a pull request. So now for me to actually see how Q did here, I will just need to check out the pull request itself. It will generate a very good description of the PR, so I can just see at a glance what was changed, and I can approve it because I'm happy with what it has generated for us. And then I can just merge the branch back to our main. And yeah, one last thing that I want to do is just make sure that this fix has indeed made it to our main branch. So I'm going to just browse to our code base here within Code Catalyst, and I can see there the timeout has been increased to 30 seconds. Great. And we did all of that without even checking out the code at all. So Amazon Q has taken care of that.
Okay, so you've now seen how tasks that would have previously you would have spent countless hours trying to find solutions have been significantly reduced. For instance, we saw earlier, by using Q, you're able to add dark mode to your application, a task which you may have spent hours or even days researching online to find a solution. With tools like Code Catalyst, Code Whisper, and Q, this means you can now return to doing what you love, which is innovating, solving complex problems, and taking the world forward one semicolon at a time. So having seen for yourselves now how these tools can help you, your next question might be, well, how would I roll these out across my team or maybe even my organization? To help us answer that, I'd now like to bring Vincent DeGori to the stage.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Hello, everyone. I'd like to discuss and present what is AXA Digital Commercial Platform, and as a CTO, the kind of organization and objective that we have set in our strategy in order to maximize the productivity, but also the happiness of the developer. Because as a CTO, we try to make life easier for the developers, whether it is code developers, data engineer, data science. So having that kind of technology with us in this program that we are creating with AWS and co-developing with AWS is absolutely paramount for us. But first, on the few minutes, I want to present what is Digital Commercial Platform at AXA. It's a very big ambition, actually. It's to be the #1 B2B platform for risk management and prevention management at scale. This is typically what we are doing for our corporate customer at AXA for years and years, developing a lot of solutions and also providing services, risk consulting services especially. So let's try to imagine that having consultant on the field is quite expensive, and what we want to do is digitalize the way to bringing more consultancy services and prevention systems to our customers. So it's really this idea to create a 360-degree view about what your risk management is. And the reality is that we are now in a polycrisis world. Having a global view of all your risk factors, like layers of risk that can give you the best way of establishing everything regarding the mitigation of your risk, to the reporting, to the audits, and even find the good partners in order to mitigate your risk at the end of the day, is definitely one we try to achieve. So whether it is for natural catastrophe, like wildfire or flooding or tempests, or cyber risk, or geopolitical issues, war and things like that, we all experience that with the Ukraine war, for instance. What we want to achieve here is having and providing this global view. Few figures, and a key one that I like the most is the hourly cost of climate change to the global economy, which is established by AXA throughout its annual report by $16 million per hour. So having a mitigation plan for, again, mitigate this risk are a direct business outcome, obviously. So what we want to do as AXA, as an insurance company, is to protect, continue to protect, obviously, but to bring more prevention and services with the help of those products hosted on this digital commercial platform. So the main idea is to propose risk understanding, so you will have a global scanning from the satellite image to your buildings with IoT devices. You will also receive some real-time alerting systems with events that follow the sun and all events around the world, obviously, because probably your corporation, your activities and business are all around the world. And propose, obviously, risk mitigation plans, and post-event support. This is definitely the key, the core of what we are providing as risk consultant for our customers. So the main idea with creating this platform by using and leveraging a lot of technology with AWS, it's to serve the left side of this diagram with personas like underwriters, the people who are helping our customers to establish these insurance contracts, the claim handlers, people also that needs to have a lot of data in order to provide the best claim management, obviously, and all that kind of personnel inside our insurance world. Connecting and connected with all the rest of the technology landscape like geospatial analytics, using generative AI for more easy exploration, using prompting, for instance, for having more analytics from the data itself. It's quite expensive and difficult to explore the data because it's very big amount of data. And connect Internet of Things, obviously. And we also have developing virtual reality devices capabilities, for instance. So for that, we need developers. And this is definitely an illustration about, in the context of AWS, how we can use those tools in order to build and fix, obviously, but also to run and detect. And usually, in our organization, we have separate teams for that. Even if the DevOps role, really important role, try to fix it up a little, but DevOps guys are all experts, very difficult to maintain in the time because they need to provide on such program a large amount of their hours fixing things here and there. So it's not most efficient at the end of the day. It's a lot of process and really control-oriented at the end. So in order to maximize the productivity, the main idea is having a platform engineering principle in place. So we change a little bit the game. It's everyone working together with a platform approach. It's a change a little bit of attitude because it's not the issue with the that the DevOps guy or girl is taking care of. It's more like I can find a set of building blocks, blueprints, toolings, SDKs that will help my life, my day-to-day life as a developer maybe. And I have a set of tools that will augment my developer experience on a day-to-day basis. So it's also the ability to develop more rapidly the skills because, again, developing on the cloud is very specific, and we need to definitely use the maximum of this technology for our benefit. So it's really result and productivity oriented to do things this way. So what we try to achieve is to make some kind of on-the-shelf sets of assets in order to develop more easily our APIs, our authentication layer, rather abstraction, automation, AI, ML tooling, all that kind of great capabilities that make the developers, all the feature teams working together and accelerating with better productivity, again, with some grounded rules, with standards, with practices, quite the same. Because again, we are a platform, not a collection of different applications in one IT system. It's a platform, so it needs to remain quite consistent in the time. So having platform engineering providing these blueprints and these toolings is really much important in order to increase this productivity. So the platform engineering is really that. Incorporating these new tools that GenAI is providing with the help of Q, of Code Whisperer, we intend to translate text to code very rapidly, but in a code patrimoine, it's a French word here, but you know, the set of code that you want to maintain all your time in your context for your platform. So accelerate the production of qualitative code is really, really key for us. Increase the test coverage, and that was not specifically part of the previous demo, but here Code Whisperer is really good actually to provide unit tests, for instance, in the context of your code. It's the boring thing that we don't want to do from time to time when we're a developer. So having a help for that is really key. And one very specific one I like the most is having more accessibility for the AWS documentation. AWS documentation is so huge, you know that's more than me. So having the ability to prompt my question and having the good information at the good time is definitely a great accelerator for, again, the productivity of everyone, actually. So accelerate the developer learning curve, automatically generate not only documentation, but comments inside the code is definitely key too for us. And at the end, share a better code asset with the team by using this ability from Code Whisperer to read out this code in the context on our own repo in a secure manner in order on the long term to continue to develop our, I would say, patrimony of code. So the different services that we are currently using inside DCP are dedicated to specific activities like the DevSecOps activities with code pipeline. We are just right now finalizing the review of the V2. Have a look, it's really good. Multi-branching this time, so a lot of simplicity. By the way, we are using quite intensely AWS Cloud 9 because, like you were mentioning with Catalyst, it's not exactly the same, but we have quite a very rapid environment ready to go that I can keep from one day to another, yes, but I can create it very rapidly too. We are developing also our building blocks using AWS Silica and Terraform, which is good because in the context of Code Whisperer, it knows those APIs, so it can assist our developer to progress, or to go quickly, with the development of those modules. We are developing runtime and L+, and especially on the serverless way of developing our services. And we are also developing an SDK, so all the components inside our business logic will, for example, rely on the same rules for the logging system, for instance. So we have one SDK that is taking care of the logging, centrally speaking. Now Code Whisperer is learning from the code that we have created, and so the developer on a day-to-day basis can incorporate that very rapidly, and so on and so forth. So I won't go into much detail, but we are using a lot of very interesting services here. So the global view about what we want to continue to develop actually is pretty much summarized on this one. We're using GitHub, interact with a lot of services for different personas. So the developer experience is really augmented with the usage of these toolings. It's not an easy task. Does it work every day the same? No. Sometimes it can be a little bit complex. At the end, definitely, you need to have the control. You need to keep your developer deciding whatever it happened inside the code at the end, because inside this community of developers, it's really much important to trust each other, to build the confidence. So having that is not preventing you about developing the culture of a common rules, of common guidance that will make your community of developers progressing all together. But again, it's tools that accelerate the way and accelerate the productivity. So having Code Whisperer, having Q already available in the vast majority of the documentation or inside Visual Studio Code that you were demonstrating before, it's absolutely great for our developers, but also for our business analysts, for instance, because with Amazon QuickSight, which now include in beta Q, you can explore more data. It's definitely key in the context of digital commercial platform. We have so much data to explore that having a more easy way to produce the value from the data is absolutely key for our business analysts, for instance. So it's not only the developer experience, by the way. And the data scientist is also really happy to use the SageMaker environment augmented with Q. And I think more and more will come in the roadmap. I think that this year especially we will have a lot of enhancements throughout the years with all those new tools, including more and more Q for developers especially. One thing that I want to mention also is the little leaf, the green one. We love MongoDB Atlas. It's definitely a great platform for the product that we are developing. And Code Whisperer has integrated, it has been announced at the last reInvent, integrated the MongoDB Atlas API. So it's already available. And I'm really looking forward for the rest of the roadmap of this integration of code or APIs in the future. We can expect to have a lot in the future. So that's it. I hope you find it interesting. That was my little presentation of digital commercial platform and the augmentation of the developer community. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vincent. Today you have seen for yourself how the development experience is being reimagined with the next generation tooling. These tools can significantly reduce the development time and increase code quality, allowing you to focus more time on innovation. You have heard how organizations like AXA are using these tools to enhance their own development processes. Now it's your turn. My challenge to each of you is to enable these tools in one of your projects. Both Code Whisperer and Code Catalyst have a free tier, so you can get started for free. And speaking of free things, you can continue your learning journey with AWS Skill Builder free 7-day trial. Here you'll find enablement resources to help you level up your AWS skills. Thank you for your time today. Before you leave, please take a moment to complete the session survey in the mobile app, or if you scan the QR code, it will get you straight to the survey in the app. We really appreciate your feedback. Additionally, myself and Chris will be available at the exit if you have any questions or if you want to have a chat. So thank you again. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.